Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a beautiful game that I prepared for you today. Today we'll see the world's youngest World Chess Championship challenger of all times, and maybe even, I don't know, who knows, maybe even the world's youngest world champion of all times, Gukesh, playing against, I still would say, the strongest player in the world, Magnus Carlsen. The game was played in 2022 in the Aimchess Rapid event, in which Gukesh was only 16 years old, which is really crazy. Gukesh in this tournament had, I think, a great performance. He outplayed many strong opponents, many grandmasters that were present, I think, for a long time in the chess community. For more than 10 and 15 years, they dominated the chess community. So I think for Gukesh, it was this event was very important because he showed himself, not the community. He had, I think, to show himself that he could beat really the strongest player in the world. And from that point on, I think his career went really wild. He is now the world's youngest World Chess Championship challenger of all times, and if he wins now his games against Dinglerin in the forthcoming World Chess Championship, he'll become, of course, the world's youngest world champion of all times, which is really crazy. And I could imagine a good career for Gukesh because he's really calm in his games. He's only focused on his games. He's not watching what the other players are doing. He's only focused, and he's sitting through the whole game, which is really crazy. He has a really great stamina in chess, also very important to say. And who knows, maybe also in the GOAT debate, we have always talked about, I don't know, Fischer, Magnus Carlsen, also Garry Kasparov is there. I think we have always talked about these three names, but who knows, maybe just, of course, my pure imagination, but maybe if Gukesh now becomes the world's youngest world champion of all times and keeps his title for maybe 6, 7, 8 years, then he could be also included in the GOAT debate, which is very important to say. So I think Gukesh has a great career already, but I think his career could be really an epic one. So that's why I decided to show this game, because it's really a clash of generations, but it's also a clash, I think, of possible GOATs when it comes to chess history. So let's see now the game. Really spectacular game with the white pieces. It was a rapid event, as I said, nothing spectacular, but I think very important game for in order to boost his confidence here for Gukesh. So here with the white pieces, Gukesh opened with the move e4. Magnus' response was e6, the French defense. d4, we have d5, knight to c3, the Paulsen variation, knight to f6, e5. We have now the classical variation, the Steinitz variation with the move e5, knight to d7, f4, preparing, of course, in some lines the move f5. We have now c5. We have now this directed attacks. Of course, black is trying to attack this side of the board. White is, of course, because of the pawn chain, trying to attack this side of the board. We have now knight to f3, knight to c6, normal development, and now bishop to e3. The game is, of course, a huge battle around the square d4 already. We have now the move a6. Magnus is preparing b5, and then an expansion here on this side of the board. We have queen to d2 by Gukesh, and now b5. What should you do? In many lines we have seen this move a3, which could be met then with queen to a5, or also with knight takes d4 immediately, a standard line. But basically I really like now Gukesh's choice. He simply releases now the pressure in the center of the board, says I don't want to have your pawn storm coming here. I will simply release a little bit the tensions on the queen side. Takes out now the pawn. Magnus also takes, Gukesh takes, knight to c5, and now bishop to d3. Good move here by Gukesh, controlling first of all the e4 square. And the problem for black is here that you cannot actually take knight takes d3. Knight takes d3 would be a strategic, I would say, mistake. It's not like you will lose the game immediately because you played knight takes d3, but knight takes d3 leads into complications. Look at this. After c takes d3, you could maybe try, I don't know, something like d4 to expand in the center, but then this one is coming, knight to e4, and you don't have a good protection of the d6 square. If you don't react after something like c takes d3, if you play bishop to b7 in this line, then d4 is simply locking out the light square bishop. So that's why I mean it would be a strategic disadvantage, strategic mistake here for black, because your light square bishop is simply out of game. It's simply neutralized by its own pawn. So that's why after bishop to d3, you cannot actually take the bishop. And good move here by Gukesh, controlling simply the potential also knight to e4 move by Magnus Carlsen. We have now queen to b6. Magnus is waiting maybe here Gukesh to Carlsen, then knight takes d3 would be a discovered check, and it would be game over then for for white. So that's why Gukesh competes now on this diagonal with queen to f2, b4. We have knight to e2. Oh, good continuation, of course, for Gukesh. He's still controlling the d4 square. Knight to e4 is still not working because of the tensions of the queens on this diagonal. We have now the move a5, castling by Magnus, and now after bishop to a6, Magnus, I think, equalized the game in the opening stage. Bishop to a6, good move by Magnus Carlsen. He's simply getting rid of his bad piece. His piece was not good, of course. The bishop was a little bit stuck, as I said, simply paralyzed by its own pawns. Now Magnus is saying, finally, I'll trade off here the pawns. And now Gukesh says, okay, you have equality, but at least I have my own plan here on the king side. Gukesh continues with a beautiful f5. What should you do? Knight takes d3 is of course not possible because the queen is lost. So even if you try here bishop to d3, c takes d3, you could maybe try e takes f5. Then look at this, rook formate to c1 is going to happen. That was Gukesh's really dirty idea. After something like knight to f4, queen takes b6, the knight is lost. So you see here Gukesh with the move f5 manages somehow to keep everything here compact around the square d3, because we see you cannot actually take the problem is, of course, that these two knights are lined up on the c file. So that's why after move f5, Magnus simply took. We have e takes f5, and now Gukesh continues with a brilliant plan, knight to f4. Keeps, of course, the knight connected to the d3 square, but also is attacking the weak d5 pawn. Magnus has to now defend with knight to e7, and now e6. Another good follow-up here by Gukesh. Great continuation. What should you do? Here Magnus played f6, which is, I think, a good choice. If you play f takes e6, seems tempting, but actually it's not working. Look at this. Knight to e6, queen takes e6, queen to c5. Now we simply retreat after a couple of trades of bishops. Okay, black is up a pawn, but white has a better activity. Black still needs to secure the king by castling or somewhere else. Look at this. You have to even somehow, I don't know, include the queen into the defense. We'll line up here the rook on the e file. We can even trade it off. No worries there. Look at this. This other rook will come into the game. Even if you try to bring the king into the game, look at this. Knight to g5 is going to happen. Knight to e6, for instance. Even this line is possible after h6. Rook to b6, for instance, is working with the threat of rook to b8, picking up the rook on the 8th rank. So black has really a tough time to develop the pieces after f takes e6. Seems tempting, as I said, but good choice here by Gukesh. So after move e6, that's why Magnus played f6. But now Gukesh has a passer, has a really beautiful pass pawn, has now somehow even the opportunity, for instance, if this knight moves, to push the pawn further. But now Gukesh makes a huge mistake in the game. He plays now a blunder that could have costed him the game. He played now a rook to c1. A better choice is to simply play rook from f to d1. Very common move. Knight to bishop to d3, c takes d3 still is good. We have a grid, then maybe possibility to get the rook behind if, for instance, the tensions is off here on this diagonal after bishop to d3. I don't know, c takes d3. Then maybe later you can again try something like rook to e1, support your very progressive pass pawn here on the e file. Very important moment. Rook to d1. Good move it would have been for Gukesh for sure, or rook from a to d1 also possible, then bring this other rook on the e file. But here Gukesh played the rook from a to c1, and from this point on I think black is much better. Magnus plays here now the correct move. First of all, Carlsen says, okay, show me what you got. Here we have c3 by Gukesh. We have here queen to d6. We have bishop takes a6, rook takes a6. We have c takes b4, and now after knight to e4, beautiful intermediate attack against the queen. Here Gukesh goes with queen to e3, Magnus simply takes, a takes b4, and now also the a2 is weak. So here White's position is almost collapsing because of the mistake of because of this bad move rook to c1 played by Gukesh. Magnus continues, Gukesh continues now with knight to d4, keeps now this pawn protected, and is trying, of course, to somehow also attack the queen. But now Magnus simply takes, rook takes a2, and as I said, here black is much better. But Gukesh is battling. He's saying, okay, knight to b5, that was my plan. Queen to e5 here by Magnus Carlsen, and now Gukesh realized that the queen is a little bit trapped here. Magnus' queen doesn't have so many good squares. Look at this. This square is taken. This square is taken. This square can be used, of course. But for instance, if we bring something in between, then again, the queen has a tough time to escape. The main threat that Gukesh has to deliver is, of course, the move knight to d3. So that's why Gukesh played the beautiful rook to c7. With the opportunity to play knight to d3. That was now Gukesh huge threat. If knight to d3 happens, then the queen is actually trapped. But Magnus had here the opportunity to protect everything with a great move. Maybe if you just like, pause the video and try to see now the only defensive move here for black. It's only one move that's helping out black. I would say every other move is simply bad here for Magnus Carlsen. So just for fun, pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for black. Okay, here for instance a move like queen takes b2 is not working. Seems tempting. It seems that you're attacking, of course, the second rank, but we simply take rook takes e7, and the knight on f4 is still connected to the pawn on b2 on g2, and this is not working. So what Magnus should have played is here actually knight to g6. For instance, after knight to d3 that we saw is a huge threat, Magnus would have this counterattack with the move d4. That was the only chance here for Magnus to survive the attack. After d4, knight to e5, something like d takes e3 could happen. Knight takes d4 is not possible here because the knight gets deflected, of course, from the defense of the rook on c7. So as I said, here after d4, you could maybe try knight to e5, take the queen, but now black also takes the queen. You're retreating, f4, you have now connected these pawns here. Maybe you're trying, I don't know, knight to d6 to let this pawn roll e7, e8. But again, look at this. Knight takes d6, knight takes d6, rook to a6. Even if you push it here, this will simply take, e7 would take, knight takes e7, and here we pick up the knight on d6 again. Game over, I would say, here for black. So it's not working. So after rook to a6, what you could try? Knight to f5, but again, we can play rook to e8. We can control everything. We can maybe stop this pawn because it's not so easy now for white to push this pawn further, and black can of course rely on these two passers here. One passer, of course, but it's supported by the pawn on f4. So good continuation here for black. But instead of this move knight to g6, Magnus Carlsen played now a very bad move here after rook to c7. Magnus played now rook to e8, and again, if you like, pause the video and try to see now the winning idea, I would say here, even for white. So it's really like white moves and wins the game. Magnus played a huge blunder here. He didn't play the move knight to g6. So what should white do now in this particular position? Okay. Here Gukesh realized the back rank problems here for Magnus Carlsen. He played now the beautiful queen to b6. What should you do? For instance, if you try rook to a8, if you're trying somehow to protect your back rank, then knight to d3 again traps the queen. That's the issue. That was now Gukesh's huge preparation. But after queen to b6, here Magnus tried knight to g5, and now Gukesh finds the beautiful rook takes e7. You cannot take rook takes e7, queen to d8 leads even into a beautiful checkmate sequence here with the queen on the 8th rank. So after rook to e7, Magnus had to escape, but now Gukesh continues the pressure. Queen to e3 by Magnus, and now after king to h1, believe me or not, in this particular position, Magnus Carlsen resigned. So great counterattack here by Gukesh. We saw Magnus had some defensive chances, but you have to see it in a rapid game, tough tactical sequence. Maybe in classical time format chess, Magnus would see the best defensive plan, but he didn't see it in this fast time format. Gukesh won the game. Incredible performance by the young prodigy Gukesh. So I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really an epic game, I would say, because it boosts, I think, your confidence when you win a game against Magnus Carlsen, even if you lose maybe the tournament. But you have always your memory. You won the game against Magnus. You destroyed him here really with a beautiful queen trap already. So in my opinion, great game here by Gukesh. Really maybe the world's youngest world champion in chess history. Who knows? So, okay, if you want to see some other content here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our commented chess games, but also our commented chess games played by computers, where we analyze AI chess. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.